you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, we may be new children playing with toys, but we're here to touch your push, aren't we, Dom? With a fucking air horn.
Yeah, let's do it. This is the closest we're going to get to a soundboard.
Uh, why? Like, we're playing now. We record all our episodes through Discord because, we're too lazy to actually show up at each other's houses. But we found that Discord now not only features, like, shared YouTube viewing together, which I'm kind of curious about because does it carry over to Discord or does it not? We found out that we have a Discord, like, soundboard, effectively. And there's a lot of random shit on there, but at the same time, like, there's just the basics are a duck quack, the hype air horn, crickets, golf clap, sad horn, and badumtus. Which, I mean, we're gonna get some use out of that one.
Yeah.
It's so bad. We're gonna have to behave ourselves.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk to you, aren't we, Tom?
Yeah. Promise to use the soundboard sparingly. Yeah, it feels like it's been a while. I don't know if it actually has been a while or just.
Our last recording date was about 6 weeks ago, and somehow I feel like I've done nothing since then. And at the same time, I know I've done stuff since then because, like, I was taking notes to record for the podcast. But at the same time, like, if you ask me what I did, I just respond with shrugging shoulders. We said we'd use it sparingly.
Sorry, it was teed up perfectly. Like, I've not done much. I've just been, plodding away. It was perfect for a Saturn.
Right. I will say that it is my personal bugbear when people overproduce podcasts, including using sound effects. So
yeah,
when I say we're using it sparingly, I'm saying we fucking don't use it at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm done. I swear I'm done.
Dumb intro, man.
Fuck.
But that has got me in the mood. It's good to talk to you again because I have I've been basically missing recording the podcast because all I do is just sit and spin in my own thoughts, and it's been like weeks since we actually recorded. Middle of July.
Yeah.
Episode comes out at the end of July, and it's like, what have I done since then? Potato.
Yeah. I find that even watching stuff, you just kind of go, am I watching this because I'm interested or because there's nothing else to do?
Yeah, I feel that way about like Disney Plus. What's on there right now is just kind of it's fine. It's not great though. Like it's not great television. It's not award winning. I mean, I'm watching Rome for the first time. It's the BBC HBO series from like 2000, and it is fucking tastic. But at the same time, I'm watching it going, no one's ever gonna make this. It is.
No.
It's unbelievable. I did notice it because like it's been I've watched it all week. And I finished the finale this morning, and yeah, 10 out of 10 would recommend. If you like English actors speaking with Roman pacing, it's not like they're not speaking Roman, not speaking Latin or whatever, but there's a way that like people write Latin for television where it's just kind of fun, especially with English actors, because there's something they're very committed to the bit, and nobody's like putting on a fake accent. Like for some reason, in the main characters, Titus Pullo and Lucius Vorenus, basically feel like two English lads during the end of the Roman Republic, and they're played brilliantly. It's Kevin McKidd and Ray Stevenson as Lucius Vorenus and Titus Pullo, but they are just having a fucking blast. The entire show is so well done, and you really feel for the main pair because people will say, "Oh, maybe they might be considered the main characters." I'm like, no, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm here for them. I'm here for the boys on tour with the Roman Legion. And it's just fucking amazing the way they pull it off. But yeah, I mean, part of what impressed me was the commitment to like practical sets because there's they've actually built something for them to walk around in, as opposed to now where like you watch I mean, there's the Ashoka TV show that's on Disney Plus, which is like the new Star Wars thing, and all of that is green screen, and like huge chunks of stuff like Obi-Wan Kenobi are massive green screens because you can't build an entire city. You have to make a certain you have to like green screen a certain amount of that show. But with this, it's like the green screen is very far off in the background, but they've built like 3 blocks of a Roman city for them to walk around in, and it looks fantastic. And everyone's wearing like proper costumes that are like it looks like Roman legionary gear, and it doesn't, obviously not like a CGI thing, like some of the new Marvel stuff. It's just you watch it, and you're like, oh wow, this feels maybe not real, but grounded in reality. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's in terms of its plot and all the scheming and backstabbing, like, this is the best. This is what it's I savor it like steak. It's so good to watch this weird show of people like scheming and plotting, and they're gonna all betray each other and stab each other or fuck each other, and there's no telling which way it's gonna go at any given point. But
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it because like the entire show you're watching, the cast just like every now and again, someone you can see is gonna dip into insanity and madness caused by the Roman system. It's not about like what people have done to each other. It's that they can't help but do horrible and fucking fantastic. And yeah, I mean it's on Amazon. You have to buy a subscription to, I think it's called BritBox, and it's like when they're like Amazon channels or whatever it is. But you
Hmm.
can get a 1 week free trial, and Rome is basically the only thing worth watching on there because I mean there's other stuff on there, but I mean everyone should have a Blackadder box set and a Faulty Towers box set as like
Yeah.
it's a requirement for a British passport is that you have both those.
Yeah.
So
I think that should be the new standard. Yeah. If you want to get into Britain at any point, you need to at least know who John Cleese and Rick Mayall are.
so I've been watching it and it's been an absolute blast. I think the best character though is Atia. It's she's the mother of like half the cast, and she fucks the other half. She's just a fucking monster. She's the epitome of just the worst of what Rome has to offer. But I think she's fantastic.
Hmm.
It's played by Polly Walker. I don't actually think I've seen her in anything else other than this show, but I want to see more of her because she's so good at scheming. It's almost like I also watched on Disney Plus Secret Invasion. There we go. But that's the point is
Yeah.
I've watched Secret Invasion, I've forgotten about it already, and yet I can't
Yeah.
stop gushing about a show from fucking 20 years ago. But
Yeah, that's because I remember watching some of Rome years ago, and just because like the 13th Roman Legion, like me and a bunch of our mates, if like before rugby, we'd all just like shout like 13th, 13th, all that kind of shit. So I remember watching a few episodes of it, and yeah, I remember it being pretty fucking good even back then because it was early 2000s. It was like, oh, there's some violence, there's some scheming. It was a pretty good show.
a lot of sex as well. I mean, not
Yeah.
gonna lie, if my dad watched the show, and he's got the DVD set, and I'm like, Dad, what the fuck are you watching? Like, I remember hearing the audio, like the intro music, that kind of like the Lyre and the Lute inspired music, and I was like, this is like my dad's watching this show about Rome. I didn't realize how much shagging was in it. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? But it's like if I'd seen this at 15, I'd have fucking lost my shit.
Yeah.
Every other episode has somebody with the tits out, and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is the best TV. 15-year-old me would have loved this show, and 33-year-old me is fucking, actually 32-year-old me is fucking loving it as well.
I was about to say, like, I know we haven't recorded the well, but like, when did you age a year if you're now 33? But yeah,
I'm just not paying attention.
Yeah, I get that. Fucking believe me, I get that. The thing about Secret Invasion is I knew from just everyone else that had seen it that it was going to be bad. You watched it all just to have, what the kids would call content nowadays. I tried to watch the first episode and I fell asleep. I dozed off. I just couldn't focus. I didn't give a shit enough about it. The whole point of Secret Invasion is that the Avengers and all the superheroes are meant to be compromised in some way. They're meant to be either off planet or they're meant to be taken over by Skrulls, so you don't know who you can trust. Nick Fury could easily contact the remaining Avengers on Earth, and he could have solved that entire thing in a day. But nah, because it was like, nah, I need to do this myself.
I mean, repeatedly. Did you get past episode 1? I mean, you fell asleep twice, but did you get past episode?
No,
1?
I didn't even get past episode 1. Fell asleep twice and gave up.
Several times in the show, someone says, "Just call the fucking Avenger," and he says, "No, this is going to be handled in house. We got to do this. This is going to be people solving problems. We can't just rely on the Avengers. We have to go by our own grit and guts, and we have to solve this problem ourselves." And you're like, just call the fucking Avengers, or I'm done with the show. And I say, like, you say I watched it for content. No, I watched it at fucking spite at this point. I I finished the final episode and was like, I don't know why I wasted my time. You tapped out episode 1 very wisely.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who's probably the biggest Marvel fan I can think of said that she got to episode 4 and was just bored. For reference, episode 4 features a terrorist attack on the President of the United States where he is shot and, like, basically attempted murdered by a private military company in front of the SAS and in front of the US, like, special forces, like the Secret Service. And it features the dumbest gunfight of all time. But at the same time, I was watching it and thinking, I get it. I'm bored by this gunfight. There's nothing fucking going on here other than a bunch of dudes standing in a line, shooting at each other, and no one fucking dying, and nothing interesting happening with camera work. It's just had a fake explosion, car flipped over. We gotta get the president out, and we'll form like a security detail to get him out the SUV and out into a new SUV to get saved by special forces or whatever. And it's the most boring scene I've seen in television. And at the same time, it is like 30 people trying to murder each other with assault rifles. I don't know how you make that shit boring, but Secret Invasion somehow managed that. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm watching it saying I don't know how they made it this bad, but I do feel like there's a number of reshoots. I did see online that they've apparently had to reshoot a lot of the scenes because it got a little gross, because a lot of it is based on Cold War dynamics. So the US versus Russia, the Skrull are hiding in Russia and basically baiting the United States into nuking them, which is kind of convenient given that, we're in the middle of the Ukrainian invasion by Russia. And there's a lot of stuff there where like it's a little too close to the bone for us to put it out as it is. They've reshot a bunch of it, and you can see it. But at the same time, like from the ground up, the story has just been like completely mutilated. I mean, you could have a very interesting, like the idea of the scroll shapeshifters being used to influence the Cold War is awesome. That is a great idea for a Marvel story, a Marvel comic book. I can see why it became like a big, like a storyline within Marvel Comics. But at this, like, I'm watching it, going, this is a complete fucking like snooze fest.
Yeah.
I don't care for anyone who's in it. I don't think anything about it matters in the long run, and that's what's weird about these MCU TV shows, is that none of it fucking matters. Like it can't affect the canon storyline of the MCU movies because that would mess with the money.
Yeah.
If Disney had the actual fucking balls to do something with the TV shows, it would drive people to the subscription service. But they don't.
Absolutely. I think Disney massively shot themselves in the foot with Secret Invasion because the whole point of the Secret Invasion is literally everyone gets hit by it. Everyone gets compromised in some way that like you don't know who you can trust. There are some people that can detect scrolls, but they get taken out and they get replaced. It's not literally just Nick Fury going, "Nah, I'll fix this." It's everyone going, "We need to route out the scrolls because they're literally trying to take over the planet." But what Marvel done is they said, "No, there's good scrolls and there's bad scrolls." So what could have been a fairly interesting story about factions dividing, one's here to help, one's here to hurt, but people can't tell the difference between which, and there's no real, who can I trust, who can't I trust, that kind of thing.
I mean,
they just remove that completely by having Nick Fury going, "Yeah, I've got this." Like, you clearly fucking don't.
I mean, there is one like we can't trust who we think we can trust moment, like one or two characters who get like scrolled but aren't who they think they are, and it's Rhodey. It's War Machine.
Yeah,
and, like they're playing it really well. Like Don Cheadle is fucking nailing it as Skrull himself, if that makes sense. But beyond that, there's no fucking point in doing it. I mean, they have Olivia Colman in as like the British version of Nick Fury, and she's amazing. Like I was talking about this because I'd compare Atia's performance in Rome to Olivia Colman as Sonya Falsworth. She's playing basically the MI6 version of Nick Fury.
yeah,
And if she wants to be M, like in the next James Bond, like obviously James Bond is kind of in a weird transition stage right now. They're trying to recast the entire thing because Daniel Craig's done with it. If Olivia Colman wants to be M, fucking let her do it. She's gonna be fantastic. She's the best part of the show. But beyond that, like Samuel L. Jackson, it's still fun to watch him as Nick Fury. I don't know what the fuck they were doing with Emilia Clarke. It's just like she's supposed to be the savior of the Skrull people. But I don't care.
Yeah.
They fucking shot Kobe Smulders in episode 1. I was like, fuck you. I'm so done with this series. From episode 1.
Yeah.
Where you shoot one of my favorite cast members, where you just have, I quite like the idea that there's like the whole MCU where you have all these superheroes, and then there's like the human people who have to do paperwork and filing and bullshit and bureaucracy and nonsense because of what the superheroes do. And for me, that was Kobe Smulders. Like that was her character, was this like human stuck between demigods who are like smashing half the planet. And I'm like, you took her out of this. What was the point? Other than to make us feel like sad, even though you didn't really do it right. But
Yeah.
I liked her in the MCU stuff, and then they're like, nah, she's dead. Episode 1. Fuck you.
Yeah. I think that's. I'm going to say that's about 85%. That actor just wanted out. They just like, fuck it, just write me out. I don't give a shit anymore. But it was mostly MCU going, no, let's kill off this character and try and get sympathy, and it never fucking works.
There's an idea in I'm not gonna lie, it's like a feminist idea. It's the woman in the fridge, and it's the idea that you use a woman as a victim of violence to inspire the men in the story to go and seek revenge, and that is the entire purpose of Kobe Smulders' character here. And I'm like, you could do a lot better with this character. Like, she's interesting. She's stuck again, like she's the human between two demigods that are smashing the planet apart. And you're like, oh no, she gets shot in Russia, and that's it. And there's a bit of a statement about, you know, U.S. Service to the American cause, or service to, you know, the Shield cause, or whatever it is, in the name of like justice. And then like they just kind of like say, okay, yeah, like she's a fallen soldier. That's it. Like, no, do something a bit better with it.
Yeah, because in the comics, she's currently the director of Shield. Like Nick Fury's kind of went rogue and done his own thing, so Maria Hill becomes director of Shield. But clearly, they've just. I think what Marvel try to do is they'll say, "Oh, we have this character, right? We're not going to do anything with them yet. We'll keep the actor engaged. Then, we'll bring them back for a TV show maybe 6 months down the line. They bring them back for the TV show. I'm like, oh, you're bringing me back for this? Yeah, go and write me out. I don't want to be part of this anymore. And it's just this kind of. It's the idea that you've been waiting so long for something that it shows up, and then it's shite. I think that's what they're doing with these sort of bit actors, the character actors in the MCU.
I was, because you said they're kind of keeping them on, and I just thought of like how, you know, you have to maintain the hold over copyright by using an IP again and again. You have to keep making Disney stuff. You keep making like Cinderella every 25, 30 years to kind of keep copyright. Do you wonder if it's the same thing with these characters? It's like we have to keep that character in the loop, just kind of keep them refreshed, even if they're not doing anything. They keep showing up. We have to keep the actor on the bill or on the payroll, keep them coming back for more, just in case we need to use them 20 years down the line.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think that might be right. We might have some use for Maria Hill, because I guarantee if they want to use Maria Hill again, they'll cut to just saying the next Captain America. Sam Wilson says, man, I could use someone of Maria Hill's skill set. They'll cut to, 5 years previously, during the Secret Invasion, when Maria Hill gets shot and killed. They'll closely examine her blood, and it'll be Skrull blood. And that was a Skrull that they killed, and the real Maria Hill's out there somewhere. And they need to go and find her.
Actually, because we can say it's not Skrull, because the Skrull have purple blood or green blood.
They have like green blood.
I can't remember. I don't fucking care. But they have a different color blood, and we saw red blood coming out of her, so they can't pull that bullshit. But I guarantee at some point someone will say, "We need a professional. We need the boss." And out of the shadows will walk Kobe Smulders as Maria Hill would say, "Boys, I'm back in the game." And you're like, "Oh wow, what a great fucking moment! Oh, what a great fucking moment from Marvel. You keep it in the phone fucking runs here."
Keeping us guessing. We never seen this coming.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is I'm calling this shot 3 to 5 years out. It's gonna fucking happen.
Yeah. I'm not even calling it. Like, the next Spider-Man film, which apparently comes out in 2024, I guarantee she's coming back in that.
Well, you thought it was
She's going to
dead?
be the one that's sent to investigate Spider-Man, like this fucking rogue Spider-Man that's kicking about in New York now after the events in No Way Home and shit, or Far From Home.
The question is, are you actually, you mentioned your point is that she's now the head of Shield. Does that mean they give her because that's the introduction to Samuel Jackson and Nick Fury is a post-credit scene to introduce him to Iron Man, like at
Yeah,
the first Iron Man. Do you think they do that again with Maria Hill?
kind of hope they do, but they probably won't.
It's yeah, that's where I'm at with the MCU. I
Yeah,
checked in just to see what was going on, and I immediately checked out and finished the last series out of spite.
yeah. I mean, the thing I watched was Guardians 3, and that was really good. I enjoyed Guardians 3, but nothing's really been up to that level since.
I mean,
Uh,
that's James Gunn doing his own like farewell and like
yeah, that's
final
James
boss.
Gunn's swan song for Marvel. He's not going to be back at the helm of Guardians. I think the Guardians as a team are done. You'll probably see Rocket, Groot, and Star Lord show up in other things, but I guarantee you the rest of them are done. You're never going to get Dave Bautista back as Drax the Destroyer.
I will. I'll check it out. Oh, that's the last one I want to see. Just because I mean the Guardians are special. I think that, again with it being so tied to James Gunn, it sits in a different league than
Yeah,
whatever's coming out now because it is directed with one vision. It's not, the slop for the DC or the MCU. I don't know why I said DCU there, but
yeah.
not the slop of
It's
the MCU.
because he's now head of the DCU,
Yeah, true.
which
He's
I've heard Blue Beetle's doing well, which is I'm glad of that.
because that's a weird hero. It's an odd
Yeah,
one.
it's not even the weirdest version of that character as well. There's another Blue Beetle called Ted Cord, who's just a fucking weirder version of the Hispanic child with a alien technology scarab on his back.
All right. It's a weird character, like obviously like certain characters have certain themes and stuff like that. Iron Man's a billionaire, Captain America is the ultimate soldier, Miss Marvel is she's an alien superpowered like Jesus effectively. The Hulk is all about rage. But then it's like, yeah, he's an Egyptian themed beetle.
Yeah,
Egyptian themed beetle man. I don't fucking know. I I see him a lot in the fighting games because it's one of those things where he's not like a major character. He's a bit more minor. He has like a fan base. There's like hardcore fans of the Blue Beetle, but then it's
yeah,
like you have to explain what the Blue Beetle is to the mainstream fans, if that makes
yeah. It's not something, but I think that's what James Gunn does so well. Is he takes these weird characters like the Blue Beetle, like the Creature Commandos, and he takes characters like Swamp Thing that people think that they know, and he goes, no, no, no. Here's what you're missing. Here's what you should be getting, and then people go, oh right, that shit's actually good. And yeah, people are really only going to know Blue Beetle from Injustice 2, where he's a good character, but he's not as good as say Superman or I think Raiden is in Injustice 2, Raiden from Mortal Kombat. They're probably going to gravitate to those characters more than this, kind of Iron Man looking dude.
Yeah. I mean, that's beyond that. I don't think there's much coming out in terms of comic book stuff. I would say the Writers Guild strike is on in America. I mean, they're like, I want to say it's like 100 days in or so. The Writers Guild and then the Screen Actors Guild is also on strike, and I want to say they are only like a month or two in, because that was around about the last recording session was Screen Actors Guild is on strike.
Yeah,
Because I remember seeing that Cillian Murphy walked out of a screening of Oppenheimer because like he was professionally required to be there, therefore it's a requirement for him to leave as a
yeah,
member of SAG. So yeah, I'm interested to see what happens out of this writer strike. I mean, obviously we think we've talked about AI and what's going on and like the licensing rights that studios have over actors and writers and stuff like that.
yeah,
Uh, I hope I'm on the side of the writers and the actors and stuff because the studios can go fuck themselves.
yeah.
But I'm
I
curious to
th-
see what comes out there.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do, in my opinion, would be if you like a writer, you like their style, go and buy their back catalogue right now, because that's what I've been doing. The During the writer strike, I've been buying a shit ton of old comics, just because there's been nothing on TV, and I've been burning through stacks of books for a while, to the point where I'm now kind of pre-ordering far ahead, uh, just to keep the books incoming. So I've went through a phase of just uh, pouring through what Chip Zdarsky's been doing, because as you've been listening to this podcast, you know that I'm a huge fan of that guy. So I went and picked up two of his Batman books that he's doing currently through his run with DC. I think he's done something like 20 odd issues. I think the next set of issues is going to be coming out in September, October time. I'll definitely be picking that up. I burned through The Last Ronin, read that cover to cover again, because that genuinely might just be one of the best comic books I've ever read. Just from cover to cover, it is insanely good. It might feel a bit too much like The Dark Knight Returns for some people, but whereas The Dark Knight Returns is literally all about Bruce Wayne coming to terms with being Batman again, The Last Ronin is all about uh, the titular Last Ronin coming to grips with the loss of his brothers, the loss of his friends and his father, and his loss of New York City to this new version of the Shredder, and how he literally is accepting, I can fix this, but I'm going to die in the process, and that's what I have to do. And it's all about him dealing with the trauma of that.
As a
So,
reminder to the listeners, The Last Ronin is a comic book from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series.
yeah,
That is,
you
it's
got,
such a, you've described it so well, and I know exactly what you're going for. But at the same time, like, it's a fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja
yeah,
Turtle.
it is exactly. You're going to go into this thinking, oh, come on, how can the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles be, this serious and this dark and gritty? Like, just fucking read it. You think their teacher's a giant rat, a giant New York City rat. Like, yeah, he gets a body count. Him and Donatello fuck some shit up in Japan during a part of the comic. Master Splinter, I think, with one strike of his katana, cuts off three people's heads. But Master Splinter is fucking badass at the best of times, but in The Last Ronin, like, it shows you how desperate or how powerful a cornered rat really is. Pretty fucking awesome to read.
Just the idea that you're going to cry manly tears for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
Yeah,
is
if
hilarious.
you're a fan of the TMNT and you watched it growing up, you're gonna read The Last Ronin and go, "Holy shit! I didn't need this, but holy fuck, I've read it now."
But I've actually picked up something. The comic book called Mercy,
Hmm,
where by Mirka Andolfo. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but
can't say I have.
he's an Italian author of comic books, and I am seriously impressed by his art style. I just saw a couple like frames or a couple images out of one of his series, and it's gothic, it's dark, but it feels like a great mystery.
Hmm.
I've not started it yet. I'm playing catch up with a backlog of manga and stuff that I'm yet to read, but I think this is a great series that I'm gonna have. Like, I'm gonna check out this thing, and I'm gonna check out more of his stuff. But I just wanted to. I was curious to see if he'd heard of him before, but it looks like a really good series. I published through um,
Image,
Image Comics, yeah.
yeah.
Which is that like a
I know
branch of DC or something like that?
Image Comics is literally an offshoot of Marvel. It was a group of guys that were all former Marvel and DC guys, and they were kind of, if I remember right, I might be wrong about this. Feel free to correct me if I am, but uh, it was a group of people that were kind of disenfranchised with all the Comics Code Authority bullshit that they had to go through with Marvel and DC. So they grouped together and made Image Comics, and their whole thing was, we're going to make non-comic code approved books that are going to be totally different from Marvel and DC.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Best known publication include Spawn, Savage Dragon, Witchblade. Big fan of that.
Yep.
I watched the anime of that. I'm not gonna. I've seen
Oh, the,
some
the books are so much better. The comics are fucking better.
the the anime. I've seen some degenerate shit in my time.
Yeah.
That was pushing it. Bone, The Walking Dead, Invincible. Saga, Jupiter's Legacy, Kick-Ass, Radiant, Black, and Stray Dogs. That is a pretty damn heavy list of like good books.
Yeah.
We actually talked. We saw that Invincible. Like there's a spin-off movie for Atom Eve.
Yeah.
That looks pretty good. I'm gonna watch that at some point. Again, like we talked about, like when you find the good stuff nowadays, you're like, I need to watch that. Like it's definitely on the list. But I've been possessed with finishing Rome. Like I have a week to finish that before I have to pay for BritBox. So I finished that today, and Atom Eve I think might be because Netflix doesn't have much either.
Yeah. Netflix, if it wasn't for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I don't think I'd even use it. Making my way back to that, but the Invincible Atom Eve special is really good. It's I think it's an hour and 15 minutes, just going into the backstory of Atom Eve, and it's pretty good. It's cool to see it's cool to see that the Invincibles universe isn't solely based on here are the Viltrumites. We're going to take a look at other other side characters that are still as important, and I think there's more of those one shots specials coming out. If I remember right, I think we're getting one based on Robot.
Okay, yeah.
And one based on who the fuck is it?
I just want a Battle Beast special. That's what I really want.
Yeah, I think that might be the other one, Battle Beast, because that guy's backstory is fucking awesome. Like you didn't know the half of it. I was flicking through some random Invincible pages. I think it was on TV Tropes, and I got caught in the bit on Battle Beast, who has his own section, and it was like at one point he's sitting there after just laying with multiple mates. He gets attacked by a group of bandits trying to, a group of bounty hunters trying to take him in for their reward. He beats them all butt-ass naked and then proceeds to go back into bed.
Yeah, he has definitely killed someone with his cock out. Like, he has definitely walked in with an axe and his cock out saying, "You're in trouble." Ever says, "No, we can take him." No, you can't take this man.
Nah, sit down.
I like Battle Beast. He's definitely, maybe it's because it's like Beast in Black. I think of him as like the main character of like their album. He could easily be like kind of Guts from Berserk. He's just more kind of.
I'd say he's more Zod the Immortal. He just wants to find strong opponents.
Zod is the perfect version of him, because Zod is on the quest to find a true opponent, somebody worthy of killing him. And you're like, that's Battle Beast from Invincible. I think he's so good. He's like a parametal character. Like, he doesn't really feel like a real person. He's just like he's something you hear about in history books rather than actually seeing as a real person. Fucking fantastic. And I really
even his artwork, in my mind, doesn't belong in a comic. Like, he should be on metal album covers.
There should be a wall with his image painted, like 30 feet high. Here he held the army at bay. The invading army was stopped by the Battle Beast. It's just him covered in blood and gore and just saying, "Yeah, what next?" Bored.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to see the origin story of Atom Eve. I mean, even just like a little bit of like her life outside of the Invincible franchise, because like if the TV show has to keep going, and I hope there's a season 2, just that continues that main storyline, doing offshoots of different characters is a great way to kind of flesh out the universe. I think the right move in a sense.
Yeah. And the good thing about Invincible is that it's a closed story. They can take it. I mean, they could do a Good Omens and take it to a certain point and then maybe continue after the source material. But after watching Good Omens season 2, I don't really think that's a good idea.
I meant to ask you about that because I saw it was advertised. So I was like, watching Rome on Amazon, and they're like, "Oh, Good Omens season 2," and you were very big on season 1, and I saw season 2 is available. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we'll get into that. But we'll get into that. Like I was saying, the good thing about Invincible is it's finished. They can pick and choose. Like, here's what we want to take to tell our story. We don't really need to add this because it doesn't really add much, or they can add in as much as they want from the sort of the other characters as they like. Kind of what they're doing with the boys. They're really picking and choosing from the source material what's going into the show. But that's because even the writer of the boys' comics says that he's not proud of half the shit they put in the books. He just did it because he wanted to rip the piss at superheroes, which is fine. But yeah, I think after, because we're getting 2 more seasons of Invincible, it'd be cool to see how far they go into the whole into the canon
I think you could
with the
finish it,
series.
given how fast like season one moves at a decent pace. There's a lot of stuff about him going to college and stuff like that, but now that it is now just Ultramites versus Invincible, once you get into that, there is like I'd say there's 2 seasons worth of storyline, even
Yeah,
allowing time for fucking around and doing sad little moments and like little like the world's in danger, but what about my date with Adam Eve? You know, that type of bullshit that you find in comic books and manga and anime and stuff like that. I think there's enough room for that plus 2 seasons of the main story because
yeah,
I've not actually watched. I've not read all Invincible. I've seen like the breakdown of like where the story is. I'd say you've got enough time to do all that.
yeah. And I think for definite they'd cut out the time travel arc because at one point Mark Grayson goes back in time to see if he can stop his dad killing the Guardians of the Globe, which I think it'd be interesting, but at the same time, I can't see them devoting enough time for Mark Grayson to go back in time and then do all this, basically do season one again.
Yeah.
So
Although it would be fun to see, like, in the middle of the murder of, of the Guardians of the Globe, like him just smack his son back into the real time of like, stay in your fucking lane.
yeah,
I am J.K. Simmons, bitch. I will put you back in line.
yeah. Like, I went through Mortal Kombat for this shit. You sit the fuck down, boy.
I'd love to see him throw a chair at him like he did. Like he just throws a chair as a reference to that fucking movie. Oh, I've forgotten the movie. Um,
Whiplash.
Whiplash, yes, he won. I was like, he won a fucking Oscar for it. It's so
Yeah,
good. But just as a Whiplash reference, just throws a fucking chair at him. It's so fucking good in that scene. It just comes out of nowhere that he's just like angry at a guy. It's like, you know what, fuck you, throwing a chair.
yeah,
Oh, but I mean, like, I recommended Invincible to a friend just because I'm like, you need to see how violent it's willing to be, and I'm not
yeah,
used to a show being like it's a comic book, it's an animated show, and yeah, you can take certain liberties with violence and that type of genre, but like seeing it come through as like just like him smashing his son through a train is fucking unreal. Like,
yeah,
I know it can't be that bad. No, it is horrible.
yeah,
It is the body parts, the limbs, the fucking human juices flying out of everything as he holds his son through a train. It's going at max
yeah,
speed. It's unreal, and it was a great show. And seeing it do a season 2 and even 3 to actually finish off the Viltrumite storyline is, I
yeah,
really hope they just finish it, nail it. And you say like it's a closed story, it's finished, it's a done thing, it's a fully told story. Just do that.
yeah.
Like do your spin-offs, that's cool. I'm cool with that. But actually just finishing a story is so important these days because I feel like people let things run on for far too long.
Yeah, and I feel that with it being closed and finished, you've got all this source material to draw upon. Because in my opinion, you then run into the Good Omens problem, which, uh, yeah, you're right. First season of Good Omens, great. It is. You can literally see the Terry Pratchett influence in it, uh, and you know Neil Gaiman being in there to kind of guide it along. Actually, he kept it so close to what Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett wrote in the book that it works really, really well. And I think the one of the main advantages to the show, or benefits of the show, was not focusing on the main characters, Aziraphale and Crowley, for the entire series. You'll They'll be there and doing stuff in the background, but it'll focus on uh, like the Witchfinder General and how he's trying to keep the Witchfinders going in modernity, which is pretty funny. Then you've got the the Antichrist, who's just a 10-year-old boy who lives in somewhere in England in the countryside, and then you've got the demon side of things. You've got the angels, both are as inept as each other, and it all kind of culminates in this big set piece at the end, and it works really well because you see all the different strands and shreds of the story coming together, and it's all pushed through this lens of these two idiots were meant to stop the apocalypse, but they actually kind of helped it along by them being completely inept. And then it goes to season 2, where in my opinion, there's no source material for it. It's all Neil Gaiman just writing shit out and making it up as it goes along. Quite frankly, because there was no books past the first one, and they've covered the first one. There might be some other stuff left that they cut out that they've added back into season 2, but ultimately it's all just Neil Gaiman making shit up. And I think in season 2 they give us too much of Aziraphale and Crowley, because you see them. In fact, I think in every episode you get at least a good 20-minute chunk of those two just talking, which is good because David Tennant and Michael Sheen, really good actors, but it goes a bit too much in that direction, and it gets a bit fan servicey.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, it feels a bit wanky. Like, you're just letting the author speak through the characters and just espouse philosophy and stuff, and you're like,
Yeah,
I don't need this. Like, get on with the story. Get on with the plot.
yeah,
What's the point in this? You don't have one.
yeah. And that was another thing. The main plot device of this series is that because at the end of the first series, the angels and the demons come to a ceasefire. Like, they're not going to try and jumpstart the apocalypse because, just because they were told to do it, they've actually gained a bit of autonomy. It's like, nah, we don't need to. We'll come to a truce. Because if we don't, these two, Zeraphil and Crowley, because they fucked around with them, made them believe that they were stronger than they actually are. Like, these guys will get involved, and we don't want that kind of thing. Probably butchered the story, definitely have, but we'll continue. So in season 2, the angels and the demons have started having meetings again. It's like, right, we need to kickstart the apocalypse. And they have meetings back and forth, and Gabriel, who is the head honcho, just kind of goes, nah, I don't want to. And then you find out through the story that he's been meeting with one of the other demons, and they kind of build up a relationship. And then there's this whole thing of, an angel and a demon can't be friends. I see where you're going with this. You didn't need 8 episodes to explain that opposites can attract. You didn't need to set this up. This didn't need to be said, because when you realise that the angels are looking for the missing Gabriel, they find them on several occasions, but because of some spell, they don't know it's him. And then the demons are looking for him because they believe if they offer him up, it could be good. They give him over as a sacrifice, it could be good. So there's no real stakes. It's not, we need to get Gabriel back to heaven, otherwise everything's going to implode. Or if we turn Gabriel into a demon, we can be the most powerful beings on the planet. There's no stakes. It's literally just.
It'd be a good idea if we did this thing.
Yeah. It's basically the most middle management meeting. It's like, it would be good if we did that. We don't need to, but it'd be good if we could. And that's not to say it was completely bad. There are some really funny moments in it. Like, again, David Tennant and Michael Sheen act their arses off in this. Like, they come away with some really, really funny things. John Hamm as an amnesiac angel. He gets some pretty funny lines in as well. Miranda Richardson. Yeah, Miranda Richardson. She's back playing Crowley's replacement demon. And again, that woman could read out the phone book in a funny voice, and I would think it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. So there's good performances. Ultimately, the story just kind of fell flat for me. It didn't need to. It didn't need to be. Like, season 2 didn't need to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't see. I mean, like you said, season 1 was really good, and it follows like source material, and it plays with that a little bit, and it's fun and interesting. And then it's like, oh, there's a season 2, and then you ask why, and immediately the whole thing falls apart. I'm like, okay,
Yeah, and that was definitely my feeling, my thoughts behind it was just the minute I started questioning, like, why did this need to happen? I mean, it was cool living in Bowness and traveling through to Edinburgh all the time. It was cool to see that, holy shit, that's David Tennant and Michael Sheen standing on the stage at the Hippodrome Cinema in Bowness. That's David Tennant and Michael Sheen standing on the Royal Mile in Edinburgh. That's them in a pub in Edinburgh. But it's not that big a deal. I don't really. If I didn't see it, I wouldn't be disenfranchised. I wouldn't be disadvantaged. And having seen it, I don't gain any advantage from it.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of a couple things right now where I'm reading books or I'm watching TV series, and when I ask the question, why does this exist? It immediately falls apart. Reading a lot of Philip K. Dick stuff at the moment, or listening to audiobooks for it, and I'm reading called I read Ubik. That was good. I enjoyed Ubik. It was a bit kind of surreal, but it kind of felt like Paprika, the Satoshi Kon movie, where it's all kind of like, what is reality, and you're kind of left there feeling like kind of I don't know what's real and what's not, and I enjoy that feeling. but I'm listening to Valis at the moment, which is part of a trilogy that Philip K. Dick wrote, and it is basically someone having I mean this in the nicest way possible, a schizophrenic meltdown, and they believe that they have contacted God, but they also know a lot about God, and it feels like Philip K. Dick is just slamming you with all the philosophy lessons, all the religious what is that called again? Like we did these classes in high school where it was RMPS or something like that.
RMPS, yeah.
Yeah, religious moral philosophical studies. And
Yeah.
it feels like he's hit you with every lesson from that class he's ever learned just because he can. And I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like I don't. What I'm like, there's an hour left of the audiobook for me, and I'm like, this better fucking nail the landing because if I've just had to listen to this bullshit for like the last 5-6 hours, I'm done. Like I've got the rest of the trilogy, and if this doesn't nail the landing, I'm not listening to the rest of it. I don't mind buying it. I don't mind wasting the money, but at the same time, like this book has just been nothing but a lecture on philosophy from somebody who I don't really enjoy in terms of like their views on philosophy aren't like eye opening and groundbreaking and stuff like that. Because I do enjoy a good philosophical argument and a good like ideas brainstorming session. But there's nothing here that I'm like. It's just he's just citing other people's ideas, and I'm like, what is the fucking point in this? And I feel like if you start asking that question of what is the point to a lot of media, you end up being like, oh, there was no point. There was no lesson. There was no idea here.
Yeah. And that's not to say that, shit with no point can't be fun. I mean, I finished reading the again, I'm going through a bit of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing right now, all brought on by Shredder's Revenge, the side-scrolling beat-em-up that was put on Game Pass. So after reading The Last Ronin, I've always known about the Batman crossover with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I knew there was a movie, and I went on Amazon and was like, okay, I'll see if I can find the film. Found the film, haven't watched it yet, but I did buy the Batman TMNT crossovers 1, 2, and 3, and I read them all pretty fucking quickly because they were all just really, really fun books. Again, it was like seeing, like we talked about with Exoprimal, it was guns and dinosaurs, giant robots and dinosaurs, like two of your favourite things slammed together. There's no real point in those books. At the end of each book, it's all wrapped up and finished quite nicely. There's no real need for a sequel, but the fact that there is a sequel, you do kind of get something out of it just purely by how fucking balls to the wall nuts it is. Like, there was no nutritional value in that. If they were food, it would quite literally be a bar of chocolate. You eat it, you feel good, but at the end of the day, you don't really get any benefit from it.
But I think that's the core of what we're talking about here is that you can have silly fun, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But you can't be like wanking philosophical for like 4 fucking hours and then say like, oh no, but it matters, or it was just a bit of fun. Like you need to have a purpose, some key to like a good piece of media. I think that's whatever you enjoy listening, watching. There should be either a purpose or it should be something entertaining and fun. But there's a certain point where somebody just goes off the rails and decides, I'm just gonna wank for 4 fucking hours, and you're gonna deal with it. It's not my problem anymore. And you have wasted my time.
Yeah. At that point, it's just someone going, "Here's what's on my mind. You will sit and listen."
Yes.
Like every YouTube philosophizer that you see.
Here's my opinion. Deal with it.
Yeah. Well, the worst one that I seen was some Andrew Tate motherfucker talking about how that young men, particularly these days, are weak and ineffectual men because they don't have emotional control. They've been told to cry. They've been told to let their emotions loose. There's no control with these young men. And he went on for about 20 minutes about how we need all this. We need to suffer and all that shit. And at the end of it, he just said, not that matters though. Like, so you've just went through a half an hour diatribe about how we need to control our emotions better, which is true, but I don't like you, so I wouldn't agree with you in public. I think it actually was Andrew Tate, and watching him speak is like watching a dog speak in perfect English, because it shouldn't happen. You don't really care that it's happening, but it's fun to watch. It's not saying anything of value, but it's fun to watch. At the end of his speech, he just kind of went, yeah, but not that any of this matters. None of what I've said matters. well, why go through all that shit? You're just trying to sound smart.
I have 100 things to say on this topic, and I want to start with the first thing is that I am reading the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, which is a foundational
I did it.
text.
Yeah, I bought that book a while ago.
Is foundational text in Stoicism, and
Yeah.
the first thing I've realized is that Stoicism is being taught wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
The idea that you are like you're just unreactive to everything is so wrong. The idea that Aurelius puts forward is that you will have horrible situations in your life. These will affect you. The key point that most people I think mistranslate is the idea that you will be faced with these circumstances, and the idea is that you will not react to it. But at the same time, people read that as you will not deal with it at all. What he puts forward in there, it's a very well made point, is that you will have to deal with these ideas. You will have to, like, in the moment, you'll have to deal with it in a practical sense, like, put your affairs in order. But then he doesn't say to just not process the pain caused by horrible situations, but you will have to deal with that later. You have an immediate practical responsibility to deal with the situation at hand. And then afterwards, these things you will have to let these things kind of wash over you in the moment, but then you'll have to process them later. And that's the key thing I think most people mistranslate about all this, like, oh, there's the Stoic values. And I'm like, I actually do enjoy a bit of Stoicism. I think it's an interesting philosophy and an idea that you can have like a certain worldview, and that these things, everything is temporary, everything will pass. You will survive everything until you die.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why I got into Stoicism is just because I thought I was at a bit of a point where I needed a bit of sage like wisdom, and then I found Stoicism, and then the more I read it, the more it made sense to me. I was like, yeah, I get this, but it was never at me that it was never, like you said, this whole I will face this with Stoic values, and what you're saying will not affect me. It's more of a case of I want to control my own emotions to the extent where the bullshit that you're spouting at me won't affect me because I know better.
Yeah, you control you control the immediate response, and then you deal with it.
It's not the case that you just take everything and it just washes down. It's a case of you're not making fool out of yourself by someone saying immediate verbal threats to you. You're processing it at your own speed without any external noise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's all coming from you. It's like that kind of Miyamoto Musashi. Another practice in Stoic. Like, there is nothing outside the self. Conquer the self, and you've conquered everything.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I feel like if you are curious and interested about it, you should definitely do some like real reading. Don't listen to someone talk about it.
Yeah,
actually read it for yourself and come to your own value on these ideas. But the Andrew Tate thing is fucking weird because
that guy's a fucking moron.
I went through some stuff that maybe people might consider alt-right, some manosphere stuff, to just see what's going on in the dialogue and like what it means to be a person. I mean, there's a lot of stuff right now. This is so fucking stupid because we're going to talk about this later on. I watched Barbie, okay?
Yeah.
And I watched Barbie, and there's a lot to say about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man, and I think there's a lot to actually discuss in that topic. And as things change, as society changes around you, you have to look at what it means to be a man or a woman, or what it means to be a person or alive, or whoever you are. What it means to be you is changing right now around you, and that's interesting. And what you read about that, and what you read from the ancients, and what you read from current contemporary philosophers, is interesting and should inform your opinions, but it's ultimately up to you as a person to decide what you mean.
Yeah.
But if you follow Andrew Tate, you're fucking dumb.
Yeah, if you follow Andrew Tate, stop. Right.
It's like watching a dog that can speak English. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I've seen a lot of stuff about like his videos. I've watched some of his clips, his content, his speeches, his diatribes on manliness, and I'm like, I'm sorry, this man was professionally kicked in the head for several years. I'm not listening to you as a philosopher. Fuck off.
He must have been, and
no, he was he's a kickboxer. I think he's a Muay Thai kickboxer or something like that. He's involved in some martial art, and that's where he gains his martial values that he espouses nowadays. And obviously now it's put into modern day like neoliberal capitalism and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But also he's a very conservative streak about how women should behave and how men should behave. And like, okay, that's weird. But at the same time, you were professionally kicked in the head for several decades. I don't think your thought process is 100%. I want to see somebody
Yeah,
a bit more, you know, cerebral and observant in his life. And his stuff is just fucking wild. And the idea that
yeah,
there are young men out there listening to his every word is a little alarming. I find it very kind of strange that he has become this kind of lightning rod of opinions, ideas, and it's
yeah.
interesting because like I actually heard somebody referred to as having Andrew Tate vibes at my work, and I'm like, that's an interesting insult. I find that it's very kind of, it says a lot, and I know exactly what you mean when you say that. But at the same time, I
Yeah,
find it a bit odd that he's such a central point in cultural discussion.
yeah.
He's a fucking moron.
It annoys the hell out of me because I'm not gonna lie. If I worked with someone that a colleague of mine would describe as having Andrew Tate-esque vibes, I'd fire them immediately on the fucking spot. Because there's, like you said, I didn't know that he was a professional kickboxer, but I always knew there was something not right with him. So knowing that he's been kicked in the head professionally for a few years makes a whole lot of sense. But I think part of the reason why I watch his stuff every now and again, it's not religious or anything like that, because fucking hell, I think my brain would turn to mush if I had to watch his stuff. But I think I just watch it every now and again because I'm not going to say stuff like, well, I'm a practicing stoic, so I like to keep up with all sects of it. But I like to I attach some stoic principles to my life just because it makes sense to me. And I watch a lot of a guy called, I think it's Ryan Halliday or Holiday. He runs a website called the Daily Stoic, and quite a lot of his stuff has helped me personally. So I get a lot of recommendations, and to see that there's people on his videos saying, Andrew Tate said this. Don't listen to this guy.
You're
Remember
not.
what I said about the analogy of the dog speaking English? Listen to the dog over him, right? If my 16-year-old Jack Russell could speak English and he was talking about stoicism, I'd listen to him over this bald, apparently cancer-ridden fuck.
I just it's fascinating, and it's a shame that some people will be introduced to ideas that are so wide-reaching and so influential as stoicism through a fucking moron. When you
Yeah,
have genuine, like Marcus Aurelius, you have a lot of like Confucian scholars as well, who, like,
yeah, you've,
read in different like different ideas, different cultures, different mythologies that are raised with that have all these different values, and they all come to the point of view of stoicism, and that's fascinating. Or we all kind
yeah.
of branch it together as stoicism, and you get these different ideas. But the idea that it comes from that guy, I'm like, oh,
Nah.
please,
I mean,
please
if
try
you're
harder.
talking to me about stoicism and you don't drop the names Marcus Aurelius or Seneca or it's Seta, like, if you don't drop any of those names in conversation and you say, "Oh yeah, I got all my stuff from Andrew Tate," again, walk away from me because I don't want to hear anything that's coming out of your mouth.
I will sit your ass down with a grown-up book, and we will
Yeah,
discuss it after you finish it.
yeah. I have the audiobook of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and I also have a physical copy. I will make you listen to both. I will make you read and listen to them both at the same time, just so it all sinks into your brain. Because Meditations is some. It's an old book. I don't know the exact age of the book. You probably know.
I mean, Marcus Aurelius is a Roman emperor, so it's probably
Yeah,
several thousand years old at this point.
yeah. It's an ancient text. Still more relevant than anything that fucking idiot has to say. He was. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was caught out by, was it Romanian pizza delivery guy or something like that?
That actually was a lie. That was a weird one where it would be. I really wanted it to be true, but it wasn't true, and I'm so sorry that it's not. But he
I mean,
basically the idea was that he posted an image of himself shit talking Greta Thunberg, and she said basically he's a fucking moron. He shit talked her back, and that they found out where he was based on a pizza box that he had. Therefore, he must be in this area. Therefore, that's where he's hiding out. And unfortunately, that's not true. The police knew where he was the entire time. Like, there was genuine surveillance work put into identifying and finding him because he was the head of a prostitution network and human trafficking network.
yeah,
Allegedly, I'm going to throw that in there just for legal disclaimers. But allegedly, he was involved in all this stuff. He's now been released, and as far as I'm aware, like, charges are still there, but not fully processed. If that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
there's other stuff going on in the background. But Marcus Aurelius was alive from 121 to 180 common era. So he was obviously, like, again, just under 2,000 years ago.
yeah.
Um, but these ideas stand the test of time as far as meditation.
Yeah, timeless.
And that's what's interesting about these Roman authors is that I'm also got a few by Cicero, and it's Cicero's How to Make Friends and How to Make Jokes, and it was the idea that he would just have these ideas, he would just write them down as he's going through. As I say, I'm watching Rome. Cicero is a character in Rome, and he's quite a fucking character because he's very kind of like he's the dweeb. He's part of the Senate. He's a man of philosophy and letters, whereas everyone else around him is a man of action and murder. And like again, like he's a great character. The actor playing is fantastic. But the idea that you have someone who's writing and thinking, and they'll casually just write down these ideas that 2,000 years ago come down to us as these ideas of philosophy, but like this was just like a scribble in a notebook at the same time. Like nobody thinks that way anymore. It's quite a shame.
Yeah, that's what I like about Marcus Aurelius. People herald it as this, quite rightly so. They herald it as this font of knowledge, but it was literally just him writing notes down.
Like, I have some ideas about this. I would just note it down, and it survives, 2,000 years and becomes a foundational text in philosophy all these years later. And it's good. I quite like these old Roman writers. It's a bit odd. I actually quite like the Cicero text that I have because it's the left-hand side page is the original Latin. The right-hand side is a modern translation. And one of the first things that kind of half threw me off was the fact that someone referred to something as shtick. And I'm like, there's no way there's a Latin for shtick. I'd love to see it written down, but I can't find the exact translation. But I'd love to see like the Latin for shtick. He's doing a bit. He's having, it's fun.
Well, old Cicero's up to his usual shtick again.
But these old Roman philosophers and stuff they've interesting ideas, and it's some of it's like not right. It's not wrong, but it's not. You can't quite gel it to your modern sensibilities. But it's interesting to see that different philosophy, that different mindset is what gets me. Is that and we were talking recently. Actually, not me, but it was a friend and I were talking about a Japanese term, and it's the word nakama, and it's the idea of like a deep, true, tested friendship. And her insistence was that there's nothing in English that translates to nakama. I said, you're not right. You're not wrong, but you're not right. It's just that we don't use those terms anymore. And there's an old term, there's old terms on the lines of like Oath Brothers or Shield Brothers that because we're not a martial society anymore, it doesn't translate to the idea of like nakama, which is again like that it's friendship bonded in the fires of war. Like it means something more. You've had some stress that you've been through as friends, and that you still have faith and trust in one another. But she was insistent there's nothing like nakama, and I said there is something out there. It's just we don't use it anymore because it just doesn't gel with the current times. I think the same ideas translate to current from current ideas to like Roman philosophy. These ideas are like the ancient Greeks and stuff like that. Where cynicism. People say, "Oh, I'm a cynic," and I'm like, I don't think you know what the term cynic means in like the old tongues,
Yeah.
But at the same time, like again, cynicism it's I wouldn't apply it to everything in my life because I'd be exhausted trying to apply cynicism to everything I do. But having a little bit of cynicism in you in a philosophical sense is very handy. Again, you say, I'm not like a practicing stoic, I'm not a practicing cynic, but I apply ideas from those ideas to my life, and I find it helps and guides me a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, I like to think I cherry pick the good parts, and I think that's the whole point of it. And I mean, in my mind, anyway, you're not going to find guidelines or an exact layout for how you should carry yourself day to day, but you find bits and pieces here and there, and that'll build your version of stoicism. Because there's no one track way of being a stoic. It's you kind of pick and choose here and there.
Just don't start with Andrew Tate.
Yeah, just don't start with Andrew Tate. Fuck that guy.
I don't know how we got so deep and philosophical, but I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have been reading around the subject of stoicism. I've been kind of keeping up to date with it for a while, and I haven't really mentioned it to anyone. Now that I know that there's someone else that can, that knows about that thing, I'm like, oh, cool, I can talk about it here, and I don't ever get the really the chance to talk about it. It's like when you go to your first convention, you're like, holy shit, these people like what I like.
Hmm. I know the feeling. It's one thing I quite I cherish these moments of realizing how many geeks there are out there. I
Yeah,
mean, I say we've had a bit of a renaissance of geekdom at my work, and you realize how many people are just fucking nerds, and you're like, I love you all. I
yeah,
really do. I can't help but really enjoy your company now that I know that you're a fucking loser like me.
yeah.
Um, but that was probably one of the deepest moments of my life in a weird way was when the first time I hung out with a group of friends at Warhammer World, and we're that's the weird thing. Like we're going to a central location centered on the idea of buying models and like basically buying toys, and
Hmm.
we're all in this weird kind of like the center, this mecca of like nonsense, effectively. And then all of a sudden, it's like realizing I was walking out there and leaving there, and I would see them again, and they're all good friends. We're all still kind of like vaguely in touch with each other. But the idea that like I'd never felt so accepted in for my weirdness before, because obviously we grew up in a small town, didn't really have much of a way of a geek scene. I don't think there's anything there now. But the idea that you're not alone as a nerd, as a weirdo, as a loser, it's so like the idea that you're not alone is so good. It's so
Yeah,
makes you feel comfortable. The idea that it's not just you with this
yeah,
weird
uh,
like fascination.
yeah. I mean, going back to books again, just because it's kind of my obsession right now. I was buying Berserk. I think and I was just kind of looking through the stores. I was trying to find Berserk #5, and I just got randomly chatting to someone who was looking for Berserk #1. I said, it took me ages to get Berserk #1, especially the deluxe edition, and this turned into about a 45-minute conversation. And I was recommending them books. I was like the elder,
Mm.
like the elder nerd, just going, "Oh, if you're into Spider-Man, try this, this, and this. If you're into Batman, try that, that, and that. If you like Guardians of the Galaxy, try this and that." Ensemble, like, and it went on for quite a while. And at the end of it, he just kind of looked at me and said, "If I bought everything you just recommended, it'd be over £400 worth of comics. I don't think I can swing that today." And I can end up walking out with 3 different books
Mm.
that probably just barely equaled the cost of one deluxe edition of Berserk. But yeah, it's always good to find. I think like with because we're metalheads and like we're nerds and stuff. I think when we find more people in our tribe, we just kind of go, right, you friend, you come here. We talk about Berserk. We talk about fact that Berserk ends. Like,
Yeah,
and it just becomes this kind of communal thing.
and again, the idea that you hide that part of yourself, and then all of a sudden you get a chance to express it, and you just can't help yourself. Like
Yeah,
you genuinely can't stop talking about the thing that you love
yeah,
and getting shit
yeah.
so much
That's definitely what happened there with with the old stoicism conversation.
better. So I went to see Barbie.
Yeah,
Actually, I did Barbenheimer, the full Oppenheimer and Barbie experience, which I do find it hilarious that the internet was just like, we'll just shove these things. And I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll go for it. Oppenheimer's great. It's a very good film in terms of like how it's put together, the way the story comes together towards the end. My only problem is that someone needs to like rein in Christopher Nolan. I feel like he sees that the idea that there's this intense story, this like, I mean, we're still living in the shadow of the nuclear era, especially with like Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia threatens to nuke everybody every other fucking week. And I watch this movie and I'm like, you could make your point of this movie, which is the idea that obviously the nukes are a horrible philosophical fucking nightmare, in that you can end all war and all life on this planet with the push of a fucking button. And the idea that that's out there and what it means in terms of like the 1940s and what it meant to people dealing with World War II. I mean, I've talked to people who it's actually another colleague at work who was asking about Oppenheimer and the atomic bombs and said, well, actually, what was going on before the atomic bombs was actually kind of worse in a way, in that like the Americans were firebombing Japanese cities and killing hundreds of thousands of people every day in the attempt to break Japanese morale and make the Japanese surrender before they had to actually invade, because the invasion of Japan would have cost several million lives on the Allied front, and would have cost the lives of millions of lives on the Japanese front. So it's like the atomic bomb was a design to end the war by shock and awe, and they do a really good job of portraying the idea that this is something that everyone's wrestling with at the same time as they're struggling to actually make it work. But I feel like Christopher Nolan said, I have an intense story, and you really need to up the ante in terms of like the intensity on screen. Didn't need to do that. His entire cast is fantastic. They're acting their balls off. Cillian Murphy has been fantastic. I've been really enjoying Peaky Blinders. It's a show that a lot of people bounce off of, but he's fantastic in that show. He brings all of that fucking quality of his act to the role of Oppenheimer. Robert Downey Jr. is a total fucking cunt in this movie, and you want to slap the shit out of him. Every like side scientist, everyone who kind of pops up for 5 minutes, feels like a real person that we just happen to see a snapshot of, or they contribute their part to the development of the film. And I mean, Matt Damon is in this movie, and he's fantastic. And for some reason, I still think of the Team America skit about Matt Damon just being able to say his own name, Matt Damon. I still think of Matt Damon as that, but at the same time, he's playing this U.S. Army colonel who is forced to just kind of handle and deal with the Manhattan Project and Oppenheimer and all these egos. And he's fucking great in this movie. He's just so fed up the entire time of Oppenheimer and his bullshit.
Yeah,
and his weird communist rhetoric at points, and like the movie is so good, but Nolan just decides to go for the like everything is like at points stuff is cranked to 11, and it doesn't need to be. A friend of mine said she wrote see the movie, but she knows like in IMAX she'd be overwhelmed by what's on the screen at the same time, and I'm watching it in a regular cinema. Watched it at the Cameo, who host Scotland Loves Anime. I've booked my week off for that, so I'll see as much as I can for the Anime Film Festival in Scotland every year. But I watched it there, and I was just like, I'm feeling it in the fucking face. Like, there's a scene where everything basically just Oppenheimer is struggling with the idea that he's creating nuclear warfare, and he's being interrogated by people who don't understand his work and people who couldn't comprehend his thought process because he's like a whole other level above them. He's so much smarter, and he's just there, like he's feeling like just all this stress and pressure, and the way they handle it is just white out the screen, to you have like barely anything visible, and they crank up this like this static noise of just like a whine, like this electronic signal that is just obviously like he's obviously like having like a migraine, as he's being interrogated by U.S. government officials, and I'm like, this is painful for me to watch. Just sitting here, like it doesn't need to be this intense. You can make the message about nuclear warfare as potent as it is in this film without taking it to that extreme. And I watched Red Letter Media's video on Oppenheimer, and they compared it to 12 Angry Men, which is a movie from like 1957, and it's about a jury debating a murder case. Really fucking good movie because I watched it in preparation for Oppenheimer. And I think going with that tone of more just a sober, civil conversation about nuclear warfare would have been a much better movie. But I feel like with Nolan, he has to take it to the extreme where it makes for great cinema, but at the same time, like it's too much almost.
I think that's always been Nolan's thing, though. From Memento onward, he became that extreme director. I mean, you watch Tenet, and it's all about it's to the extreme of the main character. You kind of get the sense that he knows everything that's going to happen, but you're along for the ride anyway, and he's going to be shot severely. Not the character, the film itself is going to be shot severely in such a way that everything looks more dangerous than it is, or it looks more important than it actually is. But it could just be they're doing a holding shot on a building, but because it's shot in such a way, you kind of think, oh, right, this is going to up the stakes. And then even with his Batman trilogy, like again, it's shot in such a way where it's just everything builds suspense and builds this kind of intense feeling in the film.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
And I think
me,
that's what he did for Oppenheimer. But I agree with you there. I haven't seen the film yet, but I don't really think you need to go to 11 in a film that's about the nuclear bomb.
I
If
mean,
it became a bit if it dialed it down a bit and just became more about how basically Oppenheimer reacted to essentially changing the landscape of the human race for several years. I think that might have been a bit more subtle and a bit better of a film. But again, from what I've heard, the film's astonishing. So
I mean, there's the actual nuclear detonation scene is fan-fucking-tastic. Again, like, it's so weird because it's fantastic because they cut out the sound, and it's just the reaction to realizing you've just opened Pandora's box. You've just set human history on the course 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and no one is ever going to undo what you've just made happen with this bomb test. And it's this weird, horrifying moment of like, oh shit, we can't put the genie back in the bottle.
yeah,
And
the toothpaste is out of the tube, that kind of thing. And you know, kudos to Christopher Nolan for actually using a real nuclear explosion in his films, because he hates CG, so it's all practical effects.
And he does it with silence, so he knows the impact of sound, and like, he's a very good director. But at the same time, it's like, would you just kind of rein yourself in a little bit so that we can enjoy what you've made? Like, it's so good. Like, it's like, I almost think that the shot he does where he say like he hates CG. When I'm looking at the shot that I'm thinking of with the whited out thing and the overblown audio, the high static whine, I actually think he probably overexposed the shot. As in, he actually told the cameraman, film this wrong. Film this like an absolute fucking amateur so that we feel stressed out. And he did it practically. It wasn't digitally added in after. The way I'm looking at it, the way that there's certain images and shadows that are still visible in this thing, I'm like, he must have done something practical in the camera, in filming, in like the actual recording session. This wasn't digital. But the again, like, it's so good at being intense and painful to watch. The Oppenheimer was just, it was a good movie. I think it'll be better for you as a viewer if you watch it on streaming, so you can pause it and walk away and take 10-15 minutes to just like deal with it in segments. It's actually sitting there in cinema, as much as I love the cameo seats, and I actually found out they can slide a little bit, so you can actually kind of relax. You can kind of lay your chair back a little bit, which is nice. I was using that at Scotland Loves Anime. But I, like, even then, I'm like, I've been in this chair for 3 hours. I am my ass is done. So I'd recommend, actually, when it comes to like streaming or whatever you want to watch it, taking breaks and just walking away for 10-15 minutes whenever you can kind of feel the breaks in the film, because they're a few. And actually, the cameo was saying, actually, when we do the 70mm screening of this show, we're doing like a 50-minute intermission just to let people kind of walk around and kind of stretch the legs. I kind of wish I'd had that opportunity as well. So I think as a viewing experience, it'll be better when you can take a break. But the film itself is great. And then like I went away, got a burrito at an overpriced Edinburgh eatery. I won't name names. But for
an overpriced, probably quite bland and tasteless, what my older brother would call a post-wall burrito.
Yeah. For some reason, someone's trying to
make it... And by post-wall, I mean when Donald Trump puts up the wall between America and Mexico and keeps people out.
It's like a tapas restaurant in Edinburgh, but using Mexican food, and I'm like, nah, bro, I'm here for the fucking burrito. Feed me. Give me an actual.
I've only had one burrito in Edinburgh, and it was literally. Do you know the cold meat that you get from Tesco that you chuck in a sandwich?
Yeah.
It was that roast beef, shredded, hit up, with the tiniest amount of lettuce in it, some minging sweet chili sauce, and some al dente, barely cooked rice. Never went back to that place again.
The more I have burritos and stuff in Scotland, the more I miss habaneros. It's gone but not forgotten. You live in my memory. I fucking love you and I miss you so much, habaneros. You weird little restaurant in Falkirk that made the perfect burrito.
Their nachos were insane. Like I'm not a fan of onions, but their roast chicken nachos with sour cream, pico de gallo, all dusted with a little light sprinkling of their pepper jack cheese. It cost you like $8.50, but it was good. Filled you up for the day. Habaneros. I think that's not a pizza. That's not a pizza place now. Yeah, Sal's or something.
It's called Sal's, and I walk past it and I say, gonna have errors.
It's not happening there. I'm not going in.
I wake up in cold sweats dreaming of the pork burrito.
Uh,
Uh,
I
but
mean, I'm not good with cheese anymore. Can't really eat that in my early 30s, but I would stomach those nachos. I'd fight through it.
but one overrated burrito later, I went to see Barbie, and I I was recommended it because I said I'm going to see Oppenheimer, and immediately people said, "But you have to see Barbie at the same time." I'm like, right, okay, go for it. I think it's a good movie. It's not great. It's not the all time. It's making massive records, and I kind of like that. I don't like that Mattel is saying, okay, so we're going to launch our own like movie brand. We're going to launch
Yeah,
the
that was
Mattel
fucking
Cinematic
weird.
Universe, and I'm like, well, that was not the takeaway from this movie. That it's a good, it's a decent movie about the woman's experience, and I like it as a good message to send to young women, like in their teens, late 20s. I think that was like that's the market it should be going for, and it went for it and it nailed it. And
Yeah.
if you're watching it as a guy, there's some stuff in there like it's kind of lazy in a sense that like some of the stuff it says, like the jokes about men are kind of like, eh, you can do better. Like I'm sure somebody could go in and really fucking skewer guys and fucking nail us to the cross. This is just kind of like lazy in a way that it makes jokes about guys, and I'm like, there's funnier jokes that could be made, and you could really fucking nail us, and we'd be forced to hold our hands up and say that was funny. It's just this kind of boring, like the fact that catcalling is a thing. I don't know what the experience is for women, but I have never seen a woman catcalled. I don't know. It must be a thing somewhere, but I've never seen it, so I
I
can't
mean, I
really.
think must be a thing in 1950s America with construction workers hanging out on girders eating their lunch or something. Because yeah, like you said, I've never seen outside of very very drunken nights. I've never seen women be catcalled.
Maybe it's again, it's like a male ignorance thing, and that's actually part of the movie is that a guy is ignorant of what woman goes through, and maybe this again is a better example. But like the idea that men are still out there on the streets going, "Hey, baby, nice ass," like I haven't seen that, so I can't really comment on that. But like that's the extent of the jokes, and the extent of the joke actually is that a guy doesn't see it. So okay, fair point. So maybe we're again stuck in this weird kind of meta ignorance, and it's got some good bits. I think though the best parts of it are like Barbie interacting almost like kind of like an alien experience to like real world and like what it really is to be a woman, and that's fascinating and fun. It's jokes about guys are kind of like you could be better, you could be meaner, and you'd be a lot funnier. But I think again like Barbie as an alien figuring out how the world works is the best like parts of the movie because Margot Robbie is fan fucking. The entire cast of the movie is really going for it, with one exception that I don't like, but I was doomed to not like this guy. But Margot Robbie does a really good job as Barbie, and she's believable as an alien, if that makes sense. Like if I'm viewing it
Hmm.
as Barbies are aliens that don't understand the world and how things really are. I mean, America Ferrara is a character in the show. I first saw her as Ugly Betty back in the day. Do you remember that Channel 4 show?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's old school, like early 2000s sitcoms.
I really enjoyed Ugly Betty. I thought it was really quite funny. It's very camp, very weird, very kind of like um, it's very stage production. But I think it was a really good show back in the day, and
Hmm.
it deals a lot with like if you were an average looking person in the fashion industry, how would you handle being this close to like the center of the universe in terms of fashion and like all these double standards that be put on you. It was very good at the time, but her character now feels like that character just aged 10 years down the line. Like she's now she's went from being like the secretary of an executive in that show to being the secretary of executive 10 years later, but she's working for Mattel. And her rant, her like monologue about what it means to be a woman today is like that's one take. When you watch it, you're like, that's one big long fucking like that comes from the soul. And that's what is the best part of that movie is when it wants to just say on the like to your face, this is what women are mad about. You're like, that's fan fucking tastic. Because it was weirdly serious for a movie where at the same time you've got Barbies walking around in the background, and they're doing this monologue in a playhouse based on a toy from like 80 or from sorry, 80 years ago, but from the 80s.
Yeah.
Like it's so surreal that the set design being actual Barbie toys from back in the day, and then juxtaposing that to the real world and just say like having them flip back and forward and have it be so like kind of on the nose was actually really good. I really enjoyed it. It is a bit odd, but I mean Ryan Gosling is great as Ken. He's just so fucking airheaded. Again, like the Kens and Barbies are like an alien species, and Ryan Gosling sells it so well, and most of the actors do. I think in a weird way, the best person in the film for me is Michael Cera playing Alan, who's Ken's friend, and it's obviously he's like kind of like Ken's the alpha, and Alan is the beta. He gets it in the face every other fucking scene that he's in. He's the butt of every joke, and Michael Cera plays it so well. And there's some fucking like throw off references that are just like, okay, that's pretty fun. But it's a good movie. It's not like if someone says, "Oh, we should watch Barbie," it's not the worst thing on the planet. I did see apparently in China it's used as a boyfriend test. So like if you're being asked, "Hey," like if a girl asks you, "Do you want to watch Barbie with me?" Just say yes, okay? It's not the worst thing. But I'd say it's got a weird. It's so weird that like it's a toy from the 50s, and yet we're making movies out of it and having it be this weird kind of philosophical moment in culture. It's a weird. It's so. It does have a lot to say, and it does do a lot of like really good scenes where it slows, it stops everything to just say to the camera, "This is what we mean with this movie," and yet
Yeah.
at the same time, Ben Shapiro will make a 45-minute video saying it's trash. Like, no.
Yeah, but he's a robot and he doesn't understand human emotions like us humans. So fuck Ben Shapiro. Who gives a shit what that guy says?
He's a weird little man.
Yeah, weird little robot man.
I don't mean to diminish him because of his stature, but he's a weird little man.
Yeah, weird, sad, angry little man. But yeah, it's probably not a film that I'd go and see, but it's good to hear that it's not what you think it is, because I suppose in a market where all films are just put out as, yeah, this is what this is going to be, to go into a film like fucking Barbie and then have it not be about here's this latest toy, or you know all about like Barbie has to go on a mission to try and find their car or something like that because their car's been stolen by fucking Action Man or some prick like that. To see that actually has a message behind it, I'd say that's pretty cool. I think we need more shit like that. Not battleships where it's a film about a board game, but they're fighting aliens that also have other giant battleships, and fucking Rihanna and Liam Neeson are in it for some reason.
What interests me is that it feels like the main point of the movie, as far as I can see, and I may be wrong about this, is that if you it says something about men. I said it does actually have a point of view about like how men and women interact, and the idea that I think the final point is that we should not be basing who we want to be as people on a toy from the 50s. You should not want to be Ken. You should not want to be Barbie. You should be a fucking person. And I'm like, that's interesting. That's a really good point to make in a movie. And the fact that, like, again, like it slows entirely down to have a woman pretending to be the creator of Barbie as like a ghost. Explain to Barbie, you don't want to be a Barbie doll. You want to be a person. If you do this, you'll experience pain, suffering, loss, and heartache, but you will live a full human life if you experience these things. And I was like, that's fucking beautiful. And I think that's the takeaway from Barbie is that life is going to be painful, but at the same time, it will be worth it. In that fascinating. It was weird to sit there in the cinema and be like, this is the Barbie movie. What the fuck?
Yeah.
We had cameos from fucking John Cena as Mermaid Ken like 20 minutes ago, and yet at the same time we're here discussing what it means to be a person. And I'm like, that was really trippy, and I really enjoyed it.
I think I kind of had a similar experience because I went to see the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutants of Mayhem, the new animated TMNT film. I went to see that on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Friday, yeah, getting a confirmation from the man behind the curtain. Yeah, I went to go see it on Friday. It was funny as hell. It was at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and I thought, oh, surely there'll be some people there. It won't just be me and my older brother going to see this film. There'll be somebody there that's taking their kids after school. No, we got the entire cinema to ourselves. It was pretty cool. So, again, you watch this new TMNT film, you go into it thinking this is just going to be them trying to reinvent the Ninja Turtles for a new audience. Nothing's going to change. It's going to be these four turtles. They're going to fight Shredder, and then they're going to have pizza at the end. It's all going to be good. Credits roll. But they actually do something very, very different in this one. Not only are the turtles actually fucking teenagers, right? Which is, in a series called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you expect them to be actual teenagers, not, 30-year-old men doing the voices of teenagers. So they're all actual teenagers. They're just your regular teenage kids. They want to go up into the surface. They want to, see what the humans are doing, all that kind of shit. But Master Splinter, who is voiced by Jackie Chan this time, who fucking plays it brilliantly, plays the kind of overbearing dad who's like, no, humans suck. You're going to stay down here in the sewers. I'll take care of you. You want to be happy, you stay with me. So they've got to deal with that. They've got to be accepted as, mature enough by their dad that they can go up to the human world and they want to be accepted by the humans, like not as freaks because they are giant walking turtles. So there's this whole theme of acceptance throughout the whole film. The turtles want to be accepted as real independent people by Master Splinter, and they want to be accepted by the human world, and they just want to have this sort of wider family because all they know is each other, and they think that all they'll have is each other. And what happens if one of them disappears? What happens if Master Splinter's not there anymore? That kind of thing. So they start breaking out and going out into the human world, and they start they go on the trail of a criminal who's been stealing all these random pieces of technology, and that's where they meet April O'Neil, and she's kind of the first human that accepts them. And then she says, "All right, you can help me because other humans don't accept me either. I'm kind of the weird, journalist girl that no one really cares about." And then it kind of keeps bubbling along. Sometimes it's a bit more subtle than you'd expect it to be. Other times it's a bit more pronounced where they talk about, oh, we just want to be accepted. And then you get random cameos from, again, John Cena as Rocksteady, the giant mutant rhino, and then you get Bebop voiced by Seth Rogen. Rose Byrne as a mutant crocodile called Leatherhead. So you get these weird cameos in, and it's this weird, like, cartoon movie, but it's got this overarching message behind it of, we look a bit different, but yeah, we just want to be accepted by the rest of you, and that's not something I really.
Still people.
Yeah, it's something I never thought I'd see from a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. And oh yeah, Ice Cube as Superfly is fucking amazing. Like he is funny as all hell. But he's another thing of like his whole thing is he just wants to be accepted. Like, but he doesn't want to be accepted in the way that I'm just going to be me, and then humans will like me for it. It's like, no, I'm going to kill all the humans. I'm going to turn everyone else into mutants, and then they'll all accept me because we'll all be the same. And obviously, the turtles just going to go, nah, let's leave the humans as they are. We get that they kind of suck and they stumble along the way, but we don't get to kill them because we see them as different and they see us as different. We need to find a way to work together and get along. And at the end of it, there's this really cool moment of the humans realizing, nah, these turtles are actually here to save our asses. Let's help them. And then that kind of sets up the next part of their journey where they finally get accepted by the humans, and then they go to high school, and then it just keeps bubbling along like that. But I kind of like films like that where you go in expecting karate turtles, ninja turtles to kind of go in and just kick butt and make a quip, but then you get a good message at the back of it. So more films like that, less films like fucking Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and all that kind of shit.
I forgot to mention who I didn't like in Barbie. I never really liked Will Ferrell. I think his characters are shit. He's just playing the same manic idiot that I'm like, there's no need for you. His character in this is the executive of Mattel, and Mattel in the Barbie movie takes it in the fucking face. Really, like they're always shown to be incompetent idiots who've made a disaster after disaster. But there's something about him and the executives that I'm like, you're too silly for this movie. where like if you were just playing Barbie straight and doing all these things where it's like you just show this weird idea and nobody like you're not laughing at it, but with him it feels like they're making like a Saturday Night Live sketch. But the rest of the movie is like very straightforward, and we'll show you this as it is, and you can laugh at it as you will. Whereas with him, it's like they're trying to be funny and it fails. But
Yeah.
it's another Will Ferrell character that just fucking falls flat. I don't like him um as an actor in his films. I mean, everyone bangs on about like their favorite Will Ferrell movie. Other than Step Brothers, I can't remember anything that's funny, and that is literally because he has his balls out on the drums. That's the funniest part of the movie. Is him rubbing his balls on the drums. That's it.
I like that you mentioned that your favorite one is Step Brothers. And that's actually the one I hate the most. I do not like Step Brothers. For me, it goes Step Brothers, Elf, and then there's that NASCAR movie that he did with John C. Riley, Talladega Nights.
Yeah, that one.
Fucking garbage. I can only watch Will Ferrell in Anchorman because he plays a completely non-Will Ferrell type of character.
Yeah, and Anchorman is first Anchorman is classic, like genuine modern classic comedy, and then after that it's just everyone just kind of let him do what he wanted. What he wanted was garbage.
Yeah, he brought the film back himself and it was like, shit, we couldn't let him do what he wants to do now.
But I do find it interesting that, I mean, we're talking about like the writer's strike and all that, and we have these weird movies coming out where like, if you actually make a fucking point, you make a really good. But if you just make this weird slop that everyone seems to be obsessed with, it's kind of like, you don't really get a payoff. It's not worth it as like a fan of these things. I don't remember the last time. A lot of people are talking about like the fact that you just don't go to the cinema anymore. I mean, we had Cineworld in the UK is closing, and that's the cinema that we grew up on. Is that we went to Cineworld to see the movies, and there was always something on. And yeah, I don't know anyone's like, I'm going to the cinema this.
Yeah,
people would rather do.
It's
anything
probably
else.
because that there are that people that used to go to the cinema and now have things like Disney Plus, and they're not really bothered about going to the cinema anymore, which is sad because I know Christopher Nolan is the one pioneering this, and I kind of stand behind them 100%. Certain films need to be seen in the cinema. Like Dragon Ball Superhero, for example. I'd say you need to see that in the cinema at least once. Like that scene with Gohan transforming when he thinks that Piccolo's getting his ass kicked. Fucking amazing to see in the cinema.
Yeah, there's a certain
like Oppenheimer, the bomb explosion. Absolutely need to see that in the fucking cinema.
I actually feel like that way about a lot of anime films is that it needs to be in the cinema, especially for like shonen films where you've got action, you've got an intensity that like belongs in a room with other people, like just enjoying it as much as you are. And I feel like that's the correct way to enjoy certain films. And I do agree that like there's certain things that need to be in the cinema. We're like talking about like Nolan's one that can do it. It's weird that Zack Snyder is mostly working with Netflix. I think his stuff actually belongs on the big screen. Tarantino, again, like his last film when he makes it, I'm seeing that in cinema. Like fuck everything. I'm going there even if I have to take a day off work. Like that's where I'm at with like his films. Who else would I say really qualifies for that? So Snyder, I'd say if his stuff, like again, like what happened with Justice League and what happened with that studio and Warner Brothers and stuff was batshit insane. I can't believe. The more I think about what happened with Justice League and the Snyder Cut and stuff like that, I'm like, how did a room full of grown-ups allow that to happen? Especially when you watch the Joss Whedon version and compare it to the Snyder Cut. I just can't believe that actually happened. But there's a few other directors that I'm like, okay, that needs to be seen in cinema. And a lot of anime directors, a lot of anime belongs in cinema. Like it's good. It's still good when you watch it at home with a Blu-ray or whatever. But like seeing stuff on a big screen, I recently watched a film called Pompo the Cinephile, which is it's an anime about making movies. And it was odd again. We're talking about like writer strike and stuff, but seeing a film about movie making from the point of view of a character who loves movies, and in a sense of like it was all he did as a kid, and he watched films on their grandfather's lap, and that's how they grew up. And now they have this deep love of film. They make films now. That was like the romance of cinema is so like it's weirdly ingrained in culture. I'm like, I really wish we enjoyed the cinema more. But at the same time,
Hmm.
I don't think there's anything I'd really want to run out and watch right now.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing that I would, and there's stuff that I'd be like, oh, yeah, I could go and see that. But most of the films that I'm going to see in the next coming month are just re-releases and upscales of films that already came out. I mean, next month I'm going to see the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Not all at once because no one has enough time. But each week it's a different Lord of the Rings film, and because Lord of the Rings was it was a very, very crucial part of my childhood, a very important part of my childhood, and the films were fucking fantastic. Peak cinema, as they say. Seeing that in 4K or 8K in a cinema, I missed it out the first time. Only ever seen Return of the King in the cinema, so fuck it, go and see them.
Yeah, and
And I'm more excited about going to see old films that are shot or that have been upscaled as opposed to anything new because there's nothing new that grabs my fancy.
well, looking at the View Cinema, which is cinema I go mostly, like to see those films there. I go to see that one in Edinburgh. But looking at what's on in Livingston at the moment, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Blue Beetle, and The Meg 2. Right, that's the top tier. The Meg 2 apparently doing very well. Fucking, I'm here for it. You know, I feel like it's
Yeah,
a weird.
Jason Statham fighting a shark. Let's do that again.
Why not? And then you've got The Dive, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, Elemental, Haunted Mansion, Craze. There's a live version of a concert because the View does that where they have like these live concerts. Interesting. Talk to Me from Gamer Eraser, which is like Gran Turismo. It's like a video game movie. And then The Nun 2, so it's part of the Conjuring world. Mission Impossible is still in the cinemas. The Equalizer 3, which is Denzel Washington, and then The Secret Kingdom, which I think is based on a book. But again, like that's all. Like none of that came out this week. That's where we're at with cinema releases because the writer's strike means that everything's in like stalled, and I'll be interested to see what like fills the gap between now and then. They say like old movies coming back are being reskilled, re-upgraded and stuff, so where you don't have to involve writers and producers, you just have to just kind of go in and kind of like edit the movie in a sense, like you have to upscale it a bit and maybe add a little bit of extra visual effects or something like that, just to kind of like patch over some old issues. Like I think that might be the next couple months, really.
Yeah, I'm kind of for it. There are certain films that I never got to see in the cinema because I was either too young or I couldn't afford it at the time. I would happily pay the money to go and see that again. I mean, the Hippodrome in Bo'ness are doing an anniversary show in Jurassic Park. Fucking go and see that because the first one is the only real good film. It just gets garbage after that.
I was looking at the silent film festival that's on in the Hippodrome, and the only thing I wanted to see was The Man Who Laughs, but I've already seen that, and it was also followed, or it's paired with a lecture by a group of people who advocate for like not using villains with scars, because villains with scars have been a mainstay since the 1950s. Due to World War II, Nazis often had facial scarring from fencing duels, and it became the kind of go-to thing of like, if someone has a scar on their face, they must be the villain. It just became this kind of like coded thing in cinema language that everyone just understood that if you had a scar on your face, that was the villain. And it's people who have scarring and facial scarring in real life saying, "Hey, we're not all villains, we're not all monsters. Like cinema is portraying people because of the Nazis to be like this way, be the villains." And then like it reflects on people with facial scarring in real life. And it was a weird kind of advocacy group explaining that there was like issues with cinematic language and stuff. It was like, this is
all I'm saying is that anyone who protests that much at scars portraying villainy, that sounds pretty villainous to me.
Yeah, it's a weirdly like kind of like, you don't need a soapbox for this. We're not morons. I don't look at someone with a facial scar and say they must be a Nazi. They must be the evil one. I'm like, no, that person had an issue at some point. That person had a bad moment in their life where they end up with a facial scar. Like I'm more sympathetic to someone with a facial scar than someone without, in a weird way. But yeah, it was a weird thing of like, oh, but when we show you this good movie, we have to give you a lecture afterwards. I'm like, I'm not a fucking moron. I'm not going to see this. So I happened to have the DVD. I watched it. I think we talked about it on the podcast. Man Who Laughs, and it's a good movie. But I'm not sitting there to be lectured by somebody who's like, well, actually, we're not all villains. I'm like, I know. You're a normal fucking person. You didn't stab me on the way in.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. When I was at uni, I got invited to a screening of the Joe Pesci film, My Cousin Vinny, which is a really, really good legal comedy. It's been heralded by people in America or lawyers in America as one of the most accurate in terms of the legal process and the legal terminology. So I
Mm.
thought we'd watch it. But the person who was going to book us tickets, they were reading through it and they said, oh, what does this all mean? They passed me their phone. And I was scrolling through it and it says a live commentary from practicing professors from, I think it was Boston. And I was like, fuck, I'm not going to sit and watch My Cousin Vinny, which is a great film. I urge you all to watch it. It's funny as fuck. Joe Pesci just puts on a clinic for being this oddball lawyer. And I'm not going to sit through that with, someone going, pause it, or this means that. I'm not going to sit through an entire film where the person in control of the remote can just pause it and then give me a 25-minute lecture on the nature of, habeas corpus or fucking the nature of
The right
evidence and
process
hearings and stuff like that. Just let the film rock.
I may have the winner on this one. When I was in the States, I was told, hey, like I was hanging out with a friend. It's just like I can't hang out with you that night, but a friend of mine is doing a showing of the film Rent, which is a film version of the musical, which is it's about the gay community in New York in like the 1980s. And I'm like, I'll go see it. And it's like, I'll go watch this film. A bunch of like theater students and stuff. And it turns out to also be a like advocacy meeting for the LGBT community back in like 2010 in the United States on a southern university campus. So like you watch the movie and then for like half an hour afterwards you get this lecture about LGBT rights in North Carolina, and I'm like, I don't even have a fucking vote, but I can't leave because then I look like a bigot. I can't walk out and say, fuck you showed me this movie, and now all of a sudden I have these conflicting issues about the gays. And I'm like, I have to just kind of sit and listen. And they're like, does anyone have a question? And I'm like, this is so awkward because no one's asking a question. And I kind of want to like just fill in the void. I want to ask something just to fill in the moment. But at the same time, like, it doesn't fucking matter because I'm not from here. I don't have a fucking vote. I can't vote in favor of whatever political issue this was really about in the end. But I just had to kind of sit there in weird silence. I think I asked some weird question about this idea that I had about the movie and stuff, and it was like I just watched it as someone who analyzes films, and everyone's like, "No, this is a political message. We're here to talk politics." And I'm like, "Oh shit."
Your question should have been, "I'm from Scotland. Can I leave?"
That would have been a smart thing to do. I am not smart.
No, what you should have done was put your hand up, say, "I'm from Scotland. Can I leave?" And if they say no, you jump up out your seat, sing "Flower of Scotland" as loud as you can while walking out of the theatre.
Surely I have to scream freedom as I run out the door.
As you finish singing "Flower of Scotland," you shout freedom.
Always sing Flower of Scotland, kids.
Yeah,
I'm
you always
actually
got.
that the friend who did that to me has been in contact, and they want me to. I think they want me to get a kilt for them and bring it over, to smuggle it into the country for them. So I'll be busy doing that at some point next year.
Yeah.
But I think we go into the elevator pitches. Are you good to go with that?
Yeah, we're good to go.
So I have gone back into the annals of history and picked up the YouTube channel of Dara O'Brien. Dara O'Brien was the host of Mock the Week, which I think it's fair to say is the cornerstone of most of our comedy here at the Jibber podcast. And Dara started a YouTube channel. It's only a couple months old, but I really enjoyed his comedy. He's always like a very quick-witted host. I think he has the right blend of being a comedian himself, but also letting other people be funny as well. And that's something that I think if you want to make a genuine, lasting impression on people, is you don't have to be the funniest person in the room. You have to play with the funniest people in the room. And Dara did that perfectly on Mock the Week. And he has a YouTube channel now, and it's just posting his stand-up bits, mostly from his own solo career, a lot of stuff from Live at the Apollo like 10, 15, 20 years ago. But I really enjoyed Dara Breen, and I wanted to just give his YouTube channel a little shout because he's not like an edgy comedian. He's a very funny man, but I think he's got a lot of thought-provoking like comedy bits that I think most people will enjoy. So I'm putting Dara Breen's YouTube channel as the thing I want to elevator pitch to everyone today.
And yeah, Dara Breen was always that good kind of blend of I'm going to say some shit that's smart, but then I'm going to say some dumb shit that's going to make you laugh. He's always that good host on Mock the Week. He let people say their bit. He wouldn't just shut it down. Not like you would see you see quite a lot in American talk shows. You see the guest will try and talk and then they'll just get shut down immediately.
Yeah, he's a lot of people in comedy feel quite competitive, but I feel like Dara's got that kind of that playful kind of like it's like judo. Like we have to go back and forth. We have to roll together to actually make the comedy work. And I feel like he nailed that perfectly. So I really enjoyed it. I think that he definitely him and Frankie Boyle, I think, really set my comedy up in terms of how I was as a teenager, who I am now, especially way more Dara than it is Frankie for legal reasons. But
for legal reasons, and having to go to work without a tag around your ankle reasons.
Yeah, but I really enjoy his stuff, and his again, you see, like he's being silly, he's not being dumb in a way.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. But yeah, highly recommend. It's mostly for people who aren't from the UK who didn't see Mock the Week growing up, but seeing Dara on stage is brilliant. I think he's a fantastic comedian.
So my elevator pitch for this week is I'm going to stay on brand here. I've been talking a lot about comics, and the person who's been kind of my sort of encyclopedia of comics is Rob from Comics Explained. He was the guy that posted the video that told me about the Dark Knights Metal series. He told me about Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil. He told me about the Batman TMNT crossovers. Every time I want to look up a book, I always check to see if Rob's talked about it, because if Rob's talked about it, he's going to tell you very plainly if you should pick it up or if you shouldn't. He posted the video talking about Batman Failsafe, where Batman Failsafe is a comic that is very divisive in the Batman fandom right now, because there's a majority of people like myself who just think, holy shit, that is dumb, stupid comic book fun. But then there's the more diehard people that just keep shouting, no, that doesn't fucking make sense. How the hell can Batman survive jumping from the moon back down to Earth with nothing but his cape, an oxygen tank, and some random bits of debris? I agree that it doesn't make sense, but it is cool as fuck. And it's not just the case that Chip Zdarsky shows Batman jumping off the moon and then landing on Earth, and he goes, oh fuck, I made it safely. He goes through each individual choice, and through panel by panel, it's showing you Batman working out how he'll survive. So it is complete and utter nonsense, but it is really, really good. And that's what I like about Rob's channel. And it's not just a case of, yeah, go read this. He actually goes into each different panel, and his enthusiasm for it kind of shines out in that. And he has told me about a book that I'm really, really waiting to come out called DC Night Terrors, which we'll talk about a bit more, I suppose, later when it comes out. But if you want to hear someone who's very knowledgeable about comics talking about the latest issues that are dropping, or if you even want to hear him talking about characters, because he does some character deep dives. Like he spoke recently about how Batman is lucky to even still be in print, because it was so poorly rated at one point it almost shut down production for a while. He went in a deep dive about that. So if you want to hear someone just gush about comic books like the way I would do for several hours on end if Colin wasn't here to stop me, I'd highly recommend Comics Explained.
So if I remember to do my job, those links will be down in the comments, or like the kind of like the description of this episode. And again, like I've watched some Comics Explained. I've seen some of his stuff on, I think it was the Injustice series. He went through about that, because I was looking at that series. I've seen videos about it, and it's cool, weird. It's very kind of like, it's video game logic applied to comic book characters, and then the comic book writer said, "No, we will actually make this work," and it was fascinating to see his kind of take on that. But yeah, I quite like Rob's channel as well. Very good. Right, that is all from us today. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can do so on Twitter at Gibberfish, or you can reach out to us on an email at gibberfishpodcast@gmail.com. But in the meantime, I've been Colin Graham.
I've been Dom Anderson.
We've been talking Gibberfish.